Hello and welcome back into our notes on the Enlightenment thinkers. Today's focus is mainly going to be on expanding our previous conversations about kind of the uh, different social and philosophical roots of the Enlightenment and expanding it out to talk about kind of who are the heavy hitters of the Enlightenment, so to speak. These individuals by no means are an exhaustive list of the people that are known for the Enlightenment, but it's a pretty good list of what we call some of the key, the term would be philosophs of the Enlightenment. So, in previous videos, we talked about Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, but just for a brief overview, again, Thomas Hobbes uh, is a product of the English Civil War, that his experiences or the experiences of the English Civil War really caused him to hone in on the idea that monarchy is really important to the kind of social law and order aspect of keeping society in order. And this really comes down to the fact that he believes that people at their core are selfish and wicked, and because of that, they're going to do things uh, that aren't necessarily in the best interests of the community and in the interests of others, which is why you need this social contract where you hand over your individual rights and freedoms in exchange for law and order as you guys and everybody else builds towards creating this Leviathan where you're all moving together with the sovereign at the head of it. Now, John Locke, on the other hand, when we talk about John Locke, his ideas are going to be those that fuel moving forward a lot of the democratic ideals that we hold to be of value here in the United States and in other Western democracies moving forward. His ideas, though, at their core, are mainly focused more so on, again, kind of the rights of the individual. And this all comes down to the fact that he believes that humans are capable of learning and improving, that we're creatures that grow. Now, while we grow, we do hold three things from birth throughout our life. And those are three natural rights: life, liberty, and property. Those rights are ones that you are born with and they cannot be taken away. And if you have those rights infringed upon by the government, Locke says you are able to overthrow the government in that case. Again, coming back to this idea that the government's job is to protect your rights in this social contract rather than you sacrificing the rights. Voltaire is another individual we can talk about. And Voltaire, his view on government is that it should protect the liberty of the citizens. So not only in England do you have these ideas from people like Locke, you have Voltaire who's talking about liberty as well. Ideas relating to tolerance, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the things that'll be kind of the main tenets of our First Amendment here in the United States are all these ideas that are heavily inspired by Voltaire. He says, I do not agree with the words you say, but will defend to the death your right to say it. Again, summing up this idea of protecting and tolerating others' viewpoints. Montesquieu is another French individual that's extremely important that we can talk about. The Baron de Montesquieu, he is an individual that feels that power is a corruptible force, and if one person has power, it could lead to a person doing bad things with that power. And the solution to this is to separate it out. So Montesquieu is oftentimes credited with this idea of the separation of powers, dividing up the government, and making sure that there are checks and balances, or basically that there's these rules that are in place to make sure that one branch can't kind of amass too much power uh, other than the powers that are given to it, that they're not able to use the powers from the other branches moving forward. In the United States, we see this system played out with our three branches of government: the legislative branch that makes laws, Congress; the executive branch that executes or makes sure the laws are followed, all right, that's the executive branch or the president, and then the judicial branch or the Supreme Court and the judicial system in the United States that makes sure the laws are fair. You also have individuals like Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And Rousseau, his view on government was that direct democracy was very, very important because he valued individuals and the people having a say in their government. What did this really look like? Well, he thought that people were born good and that life was the thing that really corrupted them, so that people don't have bad intentions. It's just society that kind of causes that. And because of this, he's going to believe that the nobility need to be removed, that these systems and these hierarchies that are in place cause these corruptible influences where people are selfish and they act in their own self-interest. They're too gluttonous and whatnot. And he says that the laws should be drafted by all the people, that the people should have a say in order to protect their freedom. They should be able to draft these laws. And this is going to be a very insanely popular take, especially when we see the French Revolution moving forward, that a lot of these ideas will come back or were inspired by Rousseau. Now, we've talked a lot about people from France and Great Britain, but you also have other individuals such as Cesare Beccaria, who is an Italian philosopher as well. And Beccaria, his big kind of idea came down to critiquing the justice systems and the courts and the police and basically the way that power and rules are executed out in the world. And his big problem was is that he did not like to see this power abused. His basic ideas really come down to this idea that laws exist not as a punishment, but basically to keep the order and to keep the peace in society. That they're, again, not a club to beat someone over when they do something wrong, but again, more of the kind of guardrails to keep things in place. He comes up with the idea, or is a big fan of the idea, that punishments should fit the crime, that there shouldn't be cruel and unusual punishment. This is something that's often extended with Beccaria to the idea that torture should never be used as well. Beccaria also is a big fan of this idea of a speedy trial, that if you're accused of a crime, you you have a right to your day in court, but it's not supposed to be something that's a long drawn out process, that you are supposed to see justice one way or the other soon after you've been accused and brought in front of a judge with a crime. So again, some other ideas that make their way into the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Mary Wollstonecraft is another individual. She's also important to highlight because she's one of few individuals that are talking about the rights of women at this time. Wollstonecraft really advocates for this idea of women's equality, especially when it comes to education, that at this time, the education gap between men and women was a pretty cavernous gap, and that women should be able to get as good of an education as a man in society, and that they should also be able to enter into male dominated fields, especially places like medicine and law and politics, where these fields were often off limits to females. So again, next class we'll talk more about the legacy of the Enlightenment and where that goes, but I hope you've enjoyed this video as we've gone forward. Thanks for watching.